The United States Navy has a variety of versatile ships in its arsenal. Most people visualize an aircraft carrier, a cruiser, or a submarine when they think about Navy ships. However, in this video, I flew into the US Navy's largest stealth ship. It's not a cruiser, an aircraft carrier, or a submarine. In fact, many people have never even heard of this ship. This ship is known as the San Antonio-class amphibious assault ship. I did get to fly into this, but on an MV-22 Osprey airplane. The meticulous amount of design elements that are incorporated all across this ship is shocking. From curious things like, why are all of the handrails mounted with a tilt? And tedious things like how much force will be required to open and close the vault doors on the ship. Why has the presence of women on board made things way easier for men? And why is the Navy discouraging future iterations of this class by designing it in a way that makes it much less capable? In today's video, I'm going to explain all of this and more. The San Antonio-class ships are the largest U.S. warships with a displacement of 25,000 tons. Known as the LPD-17 or the Landing Platform Dock, these ships are equipped with massive flight decks that can carry out operations of two MV-22 Ospreys simultaneously, which I was lucky enough to witness myself. The Ospreys are loud, thus everybody was wearing protective gear to protect their ears. Coming back to the ship's got the capacity to carry over 319,000 gallons of fuel for the aircraft, which is half the volume of the swimming pool used in the Olympics. Another key feature of this large well deck is that it can accommodate a landing craft utility, also known as an LCU, or two landing craft air cushions, also known as LCACs. There are multiple vehicle decks on this ship, with over 38,000 square feet of space, primarily for storing a variety of assault vehicles. However, this particular ship is a lot different for a really unusual reason. This ship was made using 7.5 tons of steel from the rubble of the World Trade Center. This steel was melted and then used to build the bow of the ship. This is also why the ship is named the USS New York. It's one that's been named in honor of the victims of the September 11th attacks in the city. The ship also traveled from Norfolk to New York City to celebrate Veterans Day in 2023 in order to bring it full circle. Now, one of the coolest things about this ship class is its design. See, it's designed with stealth technology, which makes the San Antonio-class ships appear much smaller than they actually are in real life. This stealth capability is because of the dominant slope stretching across the ship's design, starting with two of these giant masts. These ships were the first ones to have the advanced enclosed mast system incorporated into them. These masts are two giant structures situated in the middle of the ship that house communication and radar antennae, all while keeping the ship's radar cross-section to a minimum. The towers are made from a special material that allows the ship's own sensor frequencies to pass with very low loss while also reflecting other frequencies. However, you may have noticed here that each side of the mast is a little slanted upward. This helps the mast to bounce any external signals upward instead of going back to its source, hence reducing the amount of signals that radars can pick up, which then minimizes the ship's radar cross-section to the lowest point. The interesting thing about this ship was that these slanted doors were everywhere on the exterior of the ship as well. Even the stairs on this ship followed the same slanted build. And of course, the hull of the ship follows the exact same principle as well. Now that we've checked out its exterior, let's step into the ship and take a look at its interior. The USS New York is like a floating museum. Upon entering, there's a metal plaque that now bears the names of the ships. This plaque was made from the ruins of the World Trade Center and then installed onto this ship. Just like the USS New York, her sister ships, such as the USS Somerset and the USS Arlington, are also designed like floating galleries that have many references to New York City. It's a fact that the San Antonio-class LPDs have been involved in many missions, like recovering NASA's Orion spacecraft from the sea in 2022, and transporting captured terrorists from the Middle East to the United States for their trials. However, the primary mission of these ships is to take its 800 marine inhabitants and their equipment close to their destination safe and sound, and then have them transported to land with the help of landing aircraft and other aircraft that are used by the U.S. Marine Corps. The ship has a total of 360 personnel on board, who are responsible for taking care of everything on board the ship. The San Antonio-class ships can go underway as a part of a 3-ship amphibious ready group, or they can sail as an individual ship, which is why these LPDs are equipped with 2 REM 116 RAM, which enhance the ship's point defense against anti-ship missiles. Each of these launchers sits on a set of giant springs. These springs are necessary to keep the launcher stable and act as shock absorbers. However, the ship does not carry surface-to-surface missiles, but it does have the option to carry a HIMARS as an effective alternative. So let's move on over and check out the Ospreys. These birds have the capability of transporting 24 Marine combat troops, which is why there are these seats in the back. The most standout feature of the Osprey is its long-range vertical assault. Now, this craft is really quick and has a longer range than most other in-service aircraft. Unlike most modern airplanes, the Ospreys can fly as well as hover. Despite flying horizontally, these airplanes cannot land horizontally like traditional airplanes. This is due to their rotor blades that have a diameter of 38.1 feet. These things are so big that if the airplane tries to land like a normal airplane, well, these rotor blades would hit the ground before the landing gear does. The tip of the blade is also really cool. It's got an LED light that can be turned on at night. This makes the perimeter of the blades more visible as they spin. These LEDs are installed purely for safety reasons and have nothing to do with midnight raves on the top deck. This safety feature is especially useful in situations when 2 Ospreys are operating near the flight deck at night. The primary mission LPDs also bring along a number of design features with marine interests in mind. There's a 124-bed hospital on the ship that's equipped with X-ray machines and 2 separate operating rooms. LPDs have a much larger hospital when compared to aircraft carriers. This is simply because Marines have a much larger risk of injury due to the difficulty and nature of their job. Additionally, the dining tables in the mess halls on these ships are made really large so that they can be used as hospital beds in times of an emergency. If you've ever gotten onto any naval ship, you'd probably know that they've got really narrow hallways, and in this manner, LPDs are no exception. But these passageways lead you to the flight deck, which, comparatively, is much wider than the regular hallways. The reason why these flight decks are wide is to make sure that Marines, with all of their gear, are on standby and ready for battle before they're transferred to the shore on Ospreys. This widespread passage is special, which is why every LPD has a unique name for it. On board this ship, the USS New York, this passageway is called Broadway. The walls have dozens of posters from Broadway shows as decorations, and not only that, they even have the Broadway light. However, these lights are not decoration pieces. San Antonio ships are able to house 2 LCACs at once. When an LCAC approaches to get into the ship, the gate at the stern of the ship is opened up. But the LCAC and ship must communicate very well beforehand to tell when the craft can go in. The green wave signal signifies that the ship would not be maneuvering. This tells the LCAC that it's safe to go in. Aside from the radios, the LPD also uses green blinking lights as a form of a green signal for the LCAC. The green wave signal signifies that the ship would not be maneuvering. This tells the LCAC that it's safe to go inside. Aside from the radios, the LPD also uses green blinking lights as a form of a green signal for the LCAC, quite maneuverable as well. Now, you're probably wondering, what's under these LCACs? The LCACs are cushioned mammoths they're able to go from resting to hovering in less than 2 seconds and are really fast and quite maneuverable as well. The LCAC propellers generate a massive amount of thrust when they're being turned, and yes, these hovercrafts are not only named hovercrafts. These bad boys really do hover. But what would happen if this skirt under the hovercraft rips? Under these ships, there are smooth, shiny hulls, just like a boat's hull. So if the LCAC has to stay in the water for an extended period of time, she can just shut her engine off and float like a normal boat. But due to the LCACs not displacing the water in front of it when they float, they're said to be flying across the water. They're required to turn on the blinking lights in an operation just like airplanes. Besides the risk of the skirt of the LCACs being ripped, another common issue is caused by the salt in the seawater. The salt causes the metal to corrode, as well as sand from landings, which can get everywhere and cause many further problems. To tackle this issue, there's a washing station at the Little Creek Naval Base, so when LCACs return from their missions, they're thoroughly washed and rinsed with fresh water. While operating an LCAC can look really fun, the pilots themselves would absolutely disagree with this, as the hardest part of their job is to get the vehicle inside the deck of a moving ship with a very small margin of error without scratching the vessel or damaging the LCAC. This is also made incredibly harder by the very little amount of clearance on either side of the walls of the deck, which measures to about a foot. Just imagine the level of skill it takes to pull this off. Once the LCAC is inside, it's chained up so that the waves of the ocean don't cause it to slide around the wall deck. And obviously, as the LCAC just came in, it needs to be rinsed with fresh water, which is certainly a rare commodity in the middle of the ocean. For this reason, the ship has a reverse osmosis system, which doesn't just produce enough water for the crew on board, but also enough water to wash the LCAC and other vehicles that might need rinsing as well. Additionally, the gate at the stern of this ship is massive and requires large bolts to be secured. Another really interesting thing about this ship is that anybody I talk to claims that they've got the best job on the ship regardless of where they work, be it someone working on the bridge, or assigned to be in charge of navigation, or even someone working in the hardest areas of the ship. For example, the steering area, where the person on duty has to climb and crawl through congested spaces in order to maintain and keep check of the hydraulic systems that are responsible for moving the ship's massive 50,000-pound rudders, or the people that work in the engine room. Now, the engines are located several stories below sea level. It's a really hot and noisy place, but the people working here, they seem to be really happy and proud of their work, despite the harsh conditions. The design of the San Antonio-class ships is a reflection of the realization that in order to be successful in a mission, the quality and safety of all the lives of the people on board are as important as the technology that the ships use. This is also the reason why all the systems in these ships are made for 90% of the American male and female population. Take the watertight doors, for example. These doors are designed to be operated by only 25 pounds of force, which means that the physical strength needed to open and close these doors is within 90% of the physical strength of all the people on board. Similarly, the bunk beds in these ships are designed to house the majority of the personnel on board. Now, if you're really tall, you probably won't be able to lie in this bed very comfortably. However, this class of ships was the first to have the sit-up berthing area feature, which can come in handy if you want to sit up and read a book or take a short nap. Before 1994, women were only allowed to serve on support and non-combat ships. But when women were allowed to serve on the U.S. Navy's surface combatant ships, the quality of men already there was drastically improved. This is because, at the time, Women were given a bigger sea bag allowance, meaning that they were given bigger lockers. Thus, it's all thanks to these pioneering ladies that these San Antonio-class ships were the first ones to have large lockers for both men and for women. Despite this ship being very versatile and capable, the Navy's now building the second version of this class, which is known as Flight 2. But this time, it's less capable and survivable than the original Flight 1. But why is Flight 2 being designed to be a less efficient version of the original ship? This is because the San Antonio-class ships are going to replace the Harper's Ferry-class dock landing ships, also known as LSDs. The Navy took this decision in order to prevent the building of new replacement ships for the LSDs from scratch. And that brings us to the end of our video today. So if you enjoyed yourself, don't forget to give us a like and remember to subscribe to the channel. And go ahead and click on that little notification bell so you stay updated as soon as new content is released. Thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you all in our next video.